The engagement between two of the most powerful families in Harbor City had just been announced, sending shockwaves across the world. Yet on the very night of our engagement, I caught my fiancé, Ethan Cole, backstage, his hands all over a poor college girl he had been secretly sponsoring, kissing her so hard that her lips were bleeding. "It's not what you think," Ethan stammered, hastily buttoning his shirt, his ears turning red. I stood there, cold and silent, watching the girl awkwardly fumble to cover herself. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "What excuse are you going to make this time? Do you think I'm blind?" Without hesitation, I threw the engagement ring at his feet. My voice came out sharp and icy. "Don't say I didn't warn you. The entire upper circle of Harbor City is watching tonight's engagement party. Either you go through with the ceremony as planned, or the Cole family should start preparing for bankruptcy." His jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. After a tense silence, he finally bent down, picked up the ring and muttered bitterly, "Fine. Let's begin." He straightened his wrinkled suit and walked onto the stage under the blinding lights. In front of thousands of people, he brushed past me without a glance and boldly slipped the ring onto the hand of the girl behind him, who feigned nervousness and innocence. "I might as well say it now," Ethan announced, his voice echoing across the hall. "The woman I've always loved is Anne Nguyen. Even if you destroy my entire family, Ivy, I will never marry a scheming woman who climbs her way up through manipulation." As soon as his words ended, the entire hall erupted. Mocking laughter, camera flashes, and murmurs filled the air, loud enough to tear the roof apart. In that moment, Ivy Torres, became the biggest joke among Harbor City's elite. Watching him lower his head to kiss his so-called true love, my heart went completely cold. He betrayed me first, so he couldn't blame me for being ruthless. "Miss Torres, the company's stock price has dropped 30%, my assistant reported nervously, his voice shaking. I stared at my phone screen. The top 5 trending searches were all about last night's engagement disaster. Under the hashtag Crown Prince of Harbor City defies arranged marriage for love, there was nothing but scandal. The comments were vicious. "So what if she's rich? Forcing someone into marriage is disgusting. Serves that shameless woman right for being dumped. Good for young Master Cole. Teach that manipulative woman a lesson. The Torres family should collapse already. Trash companies like that shouldn't exist." Each line was a dagger, painting me as the villain. I scrolled calmly until a new post notification appeared from Ethan Cole. "Finally free. From now on, I'll build a new future with the woman I truly love." Attached beneath the caption was a photo, 10 fingers intertwined, the engagement ring that once belonged to me now gleaming on Anne Nguyen's hand. I stared at it for a long time before letting out a cold, humorless laugh. "Notify the legal department," I said. "Activate the highest-level prosecution clause immediately. Terminate all cooperation with the Cole family, effective at once." My assistant hesitated. "Miss Torres, shouldn't we release a statement first? The whole internet is, what's there to explain?" I cut him off sharply, slamming my phone onto the desk. "A man like that doesn't deserve another word." Pressing a hand to my temple, I sank into the sofa as a dull ache spread through my head. Memories flooded back, fragmented but vivid. 5 years ago, the Cole family had been standing on the edge of bankruptcy. During an auction, Ethan had desperately raised his paddle, trying to buy back his family's ancestral estate. Everyone in the room had been waiting to laugh at his humiliation. But I saw something else in his eyes, not weakness, but a fierce unwillingness to give up. I was the one who placed the winning bid, and without hesitation, I gifted the property to him. At that time, Ethan had nothing. He clutched my hands like a drowning man, eyes full of desperation and gratitude. "Ivy," he said, "if you're willing to help the Cole family, I'll do anything for you." I smiled faintly and helped him to his feet. "All right," I said softly, "then marry me." He had gritted his teeth, fury flickering in his expression, but in his eyes I saw it clearly, the spark of ambition. To help the Cole family through their crisis, I had drunk myself into a stomach hemorrhage at a banquet. Ethan sat by my hospital bed, eyes red as he said softly, "Ivy, please don't ever do something like that again." Looking at the worry in his eyes, filled with the reflection of me, I thought it was all worth it. I truly believed we were each other's salvation, that fate had intertwined our lives for a reason. I used the Taurus family's resources and connections to help him rebuild his commercial empire. I taught him how to become a real businessman, how to negotiate, how to dominate a market. Under my guidance, the Cole family rose from a struggling small company on the brink of collapse to one of the most powerful multinational corporations in the world. But as their business flourished, our relationship began to decay. Ethan slowly resisted my affection, rejected my plans, and even started romanticizing some idea of purity from his past. That was when she appeared, Anne Nguyen, a poor college student. He projected all of his delusions and nostalgia onto her. A month before the engagement ceremony, I had already warned him directly about how critical this marriage alliance was. I shouldn't have to remind you of your responsibilities, I told him. I hope you know your limits. Ethan twirled the teacup in his hand, his tone careless. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I only see Anne as a younger sister. She's going through a hard time. I'm just helping her. What's wrong with that? I lowered my voice, trying to stay calm. She's an adult now. She can take care of herself. He suddenly slammed the cup onto the table, the sound sharp and jarring. You've become so cold, Ivy. You're not the woman I used to know. Now, all you care about is money and power. Anne is so much more genuine than you are. In that moment, I finally understood. He was no longer the desperate young man who once needed me to survive. He was eager, desperate, to break free from my control. So I chose to step back. I treated him purely as a business partner, keeping things professional. As long as he cooperated, everything would stay as it was. But I had forgotten, people change easily, especially men once they've tasted freedom. The office door burst open with a loud bang. Ethan stormed in, anger blazing in his eyes, with Anne trailing nervously behind him. I glanced up, my voice indifferent. Is there a reason you're barging in without saying a word? He pulled a thick stack of documents from his pocket and threw them onto my desk. End the engagement. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, he sat down and pulled Anne next to him. Let's end this peacefully, Ivy. Give each other some dignity. A cold laugh escaped me. Ethan Cole, are you even qualified to say that? Last night, at the engagement party, you publicly humiliated the Taurus family. Did you think about dignity then? I stood up, pressing my fingertips against the table, meeting his gaze with ice-cold eyes. You didn't just ruin an engagement, Ethan. You destroyed 3 years of strategic partnership between 2 major families. Do you even understand what that means for Harbor City's business landscape over the next 5 years? He leaned back on the sofa with a mocking smirk. Of course I understand, but all you ever see is profit and control. Even our engagement was just another calculation for you. Anne tugged at his sleeve timidly, her voice weak and trembling. Miss Taurus, please don't blame Ethan. It's all my fault. I just couldn't control my feelings for him. Shut up, I snapped, my tone razor sharp. No one asked for your opinion here. Anne's face turned pale, her lips quivering as she fell silent. The sight of her submission only seemed to enrage Ethan further. He suddenly stood up and pointed at me, voice shaking with anger. That's enough, Ivy. Don't think that just because you helped me, you can control me for the rest of my life. Every day with you feels suffocating. You didn't save the Cole family for love. You did it to expand your own empire. I was just the most obedient pawn in your hands. Each word struck like a knife to my chest. I took a deep breath, lifted my head, and met his furious gaze. So that's what you think of me? From the moment I bought back your ancestral estate, you believe I was using you? I gave a bitter smile, my voice low but steady. I chartered a private jet and hired the world's top doctors to diagnose your mother's illness. And even then, you thought I was acting? Does Ethan Cole still have any conscience? His eyes flickered, a faint trace of panic crossing them. I laughed, but my eyes burned red at the corners. Ethan Cole, I asked him one last time, did you ever love me? He looked at me with a face full of irritation and fierce resolve. Satisfied now? Do you have to hear this sappy lecture before you'll let me go? After saying that, he provocatively took Anne Nguyen's hand in his and placed his other hand on her abdomen. But things are different now. Anne is carrying my child. I have to take responsibility for her and our baby. The truth hit me like a hammer to the head, so I was only a part in their drama, a chapter in this reckless couple's love story. The next day, Ethan hurriedly held a press conference. I sat in the office, expressionless, watching the TV broadcast. Ethan's eyes were reddened, his face pale and worn. Anne sat obediently beside him, her expression like someone who had suffered a great grievance. "First of all, I want to offer my sincere apology to everyone concerned," he said with deliberate, choking emotion. "For 5 years I have been repaying a debt of gratitude from the past, always answerable to the Torres family's demands. A single contract once decided my whole life." His voice stayed hoarse and heavy the whole time. Only when he mentioned Anne did the corners of his mouth twitch. "Only Anne cares about what I truly want," he said, then turned his face away and looked awkwardly down twice. "I admit it, Ivy is indeed an outstanding businesswoman. The Cole family's achievements today would not have been possible without her help." But the tone immediately sharpened. "Yet she controlled even the smallest details, who I met with, which restaurants to dine at, even what clothes I wore to events and what watch was on my wrist. It was all arranged by her. I felt like an empty puppet, living my life in the shadow of a woman." Just then, Anne clung to his arm and looked into the camera with tears in her eyes. "Ethan only wants to live as himself. I couldn't bear to see him suffer like that. Mr. Torres, please forgive us. Please let us go." Flashbulbs exploded and reporters frantically snapped photos. Livestream comments erupted into a storm of insults. "Poor young master living in misery, like a canary trapped in a gilded cage. That controlling, power-hungry woman deserves hell. Support young Master Cole's rebellion. True love conquers all." In the end, Ethan announced he would found a new company and cut ties completely with the Torres family. "I will rebuild in my own way," he declared. "The road will be thorny, but with Anne and our child, I won't mind the hardship." After the press conference, social media was ablaze and everyone turned on me, making me the target of every attack. The phone in the Torres headquarters rang off the hook as the media called non-stop. A few long-term clients tactfully said they wanted to terminate contracts, afraid of being associated with a scandalous company. I stared at Ethan's contrived face on the screen and felt a wave of nausea. A cold hatred rose inside me. I wiped the damp chill from my face, pressed the call button and told legal, "Meeting in the conference room in 5 minutes." My assistant hesitated. "Miss Torres, is there really no salvaging this?" I laughed coldly, my calmness chilling. "Spilled water can't be scooped back up. I will make sure that couples' reputations are ruined." The chief legal officer brought in a team of 5 top specialists immediately. I slammed the stack of prepared documents onto the conference table. "Within 30 minutes, I said, my voice like steel with finality, "publish all 3 of these dossiers across every media platform. First, issue a legal statement. Announce violations of the Commercial Cooperation Agreement and the intentional damage Ethan Cole has caused to the Torres family's reputation from now on." I froze all of the Cole family's authority to manage their assets. The head of legal's eyes flashed. As soon as we took control of the Cole's accounts, I quietly activated the breach of contract clause I'd slipped into the company agreement. If I'd once elevated him to the very top, I also had ways to make him fall from the highest floor down to the second. I contacted every media partner we'd ever worked with and prepared to publish this financial report publicly. A cold light glinted across the boardroom as I opened the first report, a year's worth of the Cole family's cash flow. Numbers in red stung Ethan's eyes. He had embezzled $2.8 billion, of which $1.6 billion flowed into a shell company under the name An Nguyen. The image switched to the next chart. The Southeast Asia project he insisted on investing in last quarter had lost $9.2 billion in 3 months, and the project partner I exposed was actually a distant relative of An Nguyen. Henry, the head of finance, took a long breath. During the audit, we discovered multiple irregular transactions like these. My voice grew colder as I went on, laying the cooperation contract on the table. From the $3 billion investment 5 years ago to rescue the Cole family, to the quarterly operational capital support, to arranging a world-class medical team for his mother, even down to the expensive suits and watches he wore to events, my family had poured more than 10 figures into the Coles over these 5 years. Let the whole world see. I crushed the pen in my hand until it broke. In the end, the ungrateful one would be exposed. Team 5 moved at once. Half an hour later, the hashtag Ethan Cole trended straight to the top. Hot searches erupted with news of Ethan embezzling corporate funds to support a college student, flooding financial forums. Famous bloggers all shared blistering critiques of his immoral behavior. Calling that a young master? He's dirtier than a gigolo who blew $10 billion in 3 months. Even a beggar knows how to manage money better. No wonder the Lam family cut ties. That woman is bringing him down, put her out of business. Miss Torres was blindly raising a venomous snake for 8 years. Public opinion flipped 180 degrees overnight. Exclusive interviews on entertainment outlets poured gasoline on the fire. Ethan Cole, a bottomless pit, 20 billion swallowed and still not enough. This so-called elite entrepreneur is nothing but a parasite. Miss Torres was the bloodsucker's sponsor, 15 billion in all. This isn't an engagement, it's charity in disguise. Investigate this. That pale-faced man is definitely a leech. The phone on my desk vibrated relentlessly as the 3 words Ethan Cole blinked across screens. I smiled coldly and flipped my phone face down. This time, I would make sure that couple could never raise their heads again in Harbor City. Online outrage spread like rocket fuel. Public fury and the police investigation ignited almost simultaneously. Ethan's social accounts were flooded with angry comments, and evidence of his embezzlement had already been seized by the police, 10 items collected and files being prepared for prosecution. Serves him right for embezzling public funds. He should go to jail, people demanded. The police notice was out. This time he had no way to deny it. I was truly destroying my former fiancé's standing and preparing to send him behind bars. Standing before the floor-to-ceiling window of our building, I calmly scrolled my phone. Ethan had called more than 30 times. I had hung up on every call. Then he started blowing up my messages. Ivy, you're monstrous, using these dirty tricks to force me to compromise. What do you want? Just a little company money. How can you, rich as you are, be so calculating? Come out and correct this false accusation, or I'll never forgive you. I coldly added him to my blocked list and didn't feel a shred of remorse. An hour later, my assistant burst in with a grave expression. Miss Torres, you should look at the hot search. I took the tablet from him and read the headline, the hashtag Ethan Cole. The new release once again crushed all previous headlines. Before I could finish listening, I tapped to open it. 9 carefully selected private photos appeared on the screen, and the caption was even more vicious. Ivy is insane, it read. Just because I didn't love her, she wants to destroy the Cole family. A controlling, perverse woman like her doesn't deserve any sympathy. If she can't have him, she'll destroy him. I swear I will protect Anne at all costs. Don't let that woman so much as touch a hair on her head. The comments collapsed into shocked outrage. So Miss Torres is a controlling lunatic? Who would marry such an obsessive woman? If she can't get him, she'll ruin him. What a pathological mindset. The Torres family thinks money lets them do whatever they want. Disgusting. Investigate everything. How can the Torres group partner with such a crazy heiress and stay clean? Bankrupt them as soon as possible. I sneered. Of course, public opinion shifted with the wind. The CEO burst into the room. Miss Torres, this is out of control. The top 5 hot searches are all negative. The stock has hit the floor. Every partner wants to terminate contracts. The banks are calling to recall loans. I slammed the tablet down hard and shattered the screen. Contact all our media partners immediately, I ordered, standing with a dark, terrifying look in my eyes. Release the second set of documents. I unlocked my phone and unblocked Ethan's number. His call came through instantly, his voice smug. See? I'm giving you one last chance. Publicly correct this and apologize in front of everyone, and I might let it go. Otherwise, wait for your company to collapse. You're naive if you think a few photos will turn the tide. I cut him off, my tone a poisonous blade. Do you think I'm an idiot? He choked on his words, panic suddenly obvious. You'd better pray those bedroom scenes were never recorded, he started. I smiled coldly. If not, tomorrow all of Harbor City will get a front row show. The Cole scion and his lover. He shouted at me, when did you and she? But then he froze as if he'd realized something. The rest of his sentence stuck in his throat. He looked at me in disbelief. You saw us? He demanded. I said calmly without answering directly. All of this is the result of what you and she did. You were both intoxicated backstage at the engagement party, weren't you? In my car, in my suite, you thought deleting the cameras meant I couldn't find you. His face collapsed, and ugly curses spilled from his mouth. I hung up and turned to legal. Prepare for the Coles to go bankrupt, and pull together an indictment file on Anne Gwynn for me. I want her to understand what happens when she provokes the wrong person. My assistant spread a dossier across the table. I skimmed the photos and curled a lip in contempt. The sweet, innocent college girl in front of Ethan was actually a cantorial canary, pampered by a real estate tycoon. Her history of hotel rooms could fill a gossip mag. "Handle this, Miss Torres?" my assistant asked as I smoothed my skirt. "First, verify all jewelry and property records," I said. She contacted CEO Mr. Wang, claiming she had something his wife would be interested in. That very night, Anne had been caught at the hotel by my people, still hoarse from shouting Ethan's name. Following procedure, the ladies' group had ripped her clothes for photos, and they intended to shave her head, but my staff stopped them. "Keep her face, it'll be useful for the show," I had ordered. Then the annulment contract was thrown down in front of Anne Gwynn. Anne was trembling as she screamed, "You can't do this to me. Miss Monica Reed will find out. She's the head of public relations for Taurus Group. Once she knows what you're doing, she'll ruin you all." Hearing that, I suddenly lost interest. So, the little actress thought dropping Monica's name would save her? Typical. Anne had probably tried to cozy up to Monica before, hoping to get close to me through her. I smiled coldly. "So she's playing that card now," I said softly, then touched my earring. "Teach her what discipline means." The security guards immediately stepped forward, holding Anne by both arms. Her fake lashes had already run down her cheeks with tears. "You can't, Miss Reed won't let you." The sound that cut her off was the sharp crack of a slap. Before she could even scream, her hair was seized, and she was dragged toward the fountain outside. When her face was forced underwater, she thrashed wildly, looking nothing like the fragile white lotus she pretended to be in front of Ethan. A familiar male voice called out from a distance. Ethan strode in, his polished Oxfords thudding hard on the floor. Even his previously neat tie was askew. He rushed forward, catching Anne and carefully holding her, then turned and glared at me. "Are you crazy? Her heart isn't well? Do you want to kill her? How much capital do you need from the Taurus Group anyway?" I narrowed my eyes. It seemed he'd forgotten his position. "Ethan Cole," I said lightly, "how dare you touch Taurus accounts?" Perhaps I'd been too accommodating to him all these years. My voice was soft, but I could see his composure slip. Still, he planted himself in front of Anne, eyes that once intoxicated me now full of hostility. "What exactly do you want, Ivy?" he asked, tension in his voice, though he tried to keep his stance. "Money? Power? Do you want me to kneel and beg you?" I stepped forward slowly and smiled. "What do I want? Haven't you understood yet, Ethan?" Suddenly Anne broke free of his hold and staggered toward me. "Miss Taurus, it's all my fault. If you want to punish someone, punish me. Don't make things hard for Ethan." Her false contrition made me sick. I lifted my foot and kicked. She collapsed to the ground like a kite with its string cut, letting out a painful groan. "Anne!" Ethan shouted, his eyes bloodshot as he turned to me. "You're insane," he spat. I dropped to one knee and looked him straight in the eye. "When you embezzled public funds, didn't you think about the consequences?" His pupils constricted, and his Adam's apple bobbed. I unexpectedly clamped my hand on his chin. "Do you think my money, Ivy Taurus's money, is easy to take? Or do you expect me to pamper you like before?" He made a small, pained sound but stubbornly refused to bow. His obstinacy for a moment made me remember the proud young man from 5 years ago, though the world had changed since then. I released him, adjusted my sleeve leisurely, and said, "Right now the Cole family owes $23 billion, plus the deficit under Miss Anne Gwynn's name, $25 billion in total." His jaw tightened. "So now you're trying to bankrupt the Coles," he demanded. I laughed derisively. "If you dared betray me, then you have to face the consequences." Anne lunged again. "Ethan, don't compromise, get her out." Ethan shoved her aside roughly, grief and suppressed fury flashing in his eyes as he turned back to me. "We should talk in private," he said, and I pulled the car door closed without a backward glance. "There's nothing left to say between us. You brought this on yourself. The Rolls-Royce's engine roared in the rear view. Ethan slammed his fist into the wall, knuckles bleeding onto the pale plaster. The next day, the news that the Cole family was bankrupt exploded across the business world like a bomb. I sat in my office with not a ripple across my face. Miss Torres, young Master Cole has been waiting in the lobby for 6 hours, my assistant reported hesitantly. I took a slow sip of wine, the ice clinked crisply against the glass. Let him stay there, I said, 3 words, light as a feather. But the temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Outside, a sudden heavy rain began, pea-sized drops pelting the glass with a steady patter. I looked down at Ethan. He was soaked through. Today he wore only a thin white shirt, drenched and clinging to him, revealing how gaunt he had become. No shelter, nothing, yet stubbornly standing in the rain like a stray dog abandoned. He knew how to play the martyr now. I gave a cold laugh and drained my wine glass. The alcohol burned my throat, but could not put out the invisible fire in my chest. My assistant hesitated and reported what security had said. Young Master Cole kept apologizing and insisted he would not leave if he couldn't see me. Then let him keep standing there, I said, turning back to my desk and setting the empty glass down hard. Tell security, if he dares to force his way in, call the police immediately. My assistant inhaled sharply but nodded. Outside the window, the rain fell harder. Ethan finally could not stand it any longer and collapsed to the ground. I watched for a long moment, then suddenly grabbed my coat and strode toward the elevator. My assistant followed in surprise. Prepare the car, I said coldly as I left toward the garage, and tell security, don't let him in. I smiled with contempt. He had it coming. The elevator doors closed slowly, cutting off that bedraggled figure from sight. 3 days later at the Peninsula Hotel, the most luxurious in Harbor City, I was meeting with several representatives from international investment banks to discuss a partnership when the door was flung open. Ethan burst in, his face as white as death, eyes bloodshot and rimmed with veins. I have something to say to you, he said, his voice hoarse, nearly breaking. His fingers gripped the lapel of his vest so hard his knuckles went pale. The atmosphere in the room froze. The investment reps exchanged awkward looks. I leisurely wiped the corner of my mouth and signaled my assistant to excuse the guest politely. I have a personal matter to handle. My apology was courteous, but my voice was ice cold. Left alone together, Ethan finally broke down and cried out, "Anne tricked me." He staggered forward, reaching for my hand, but I turned away. It seemed he had discovered Anne's deeds. I raised an eyebrow, my tone sharp. Weren't these two supposed to be true love? Has the white lily mask been torn off so soon? Tears streamed down his face as he fished a stack of documents from his pocket with trembling hands. These are all the things she did behind my back, he gasped. I pushed the papers away. I warned you about this long ago. Anne secretly transferred all assets into your name and even took out high-interest loans under your name. Those so-called investment projects were just money laundering fronts. The most damning items in the file included several photos, Anne being intimate with other men, spanning from before she and he fell in love up until now. He was only realizing it now because he had been foolish. Then what? I said, tossing the documents back into his lap with a terrifying calm. Is this why you betrayed me? Ethan fell to his knees and sobbed silently. I'm sorry, I really was wrong. Do you know where I brought her back from? I leaned down and looked at him. His eyes went foggy, and he shook his head. Tears kept falling. From the bed of another man, I said with a mocking curl at my mouth. She used your money, cuddled some other man in a rainy casino, and lost $50 million in one night. If I hadn't had someone block her passport, she would have already run off overseas with your assets by now. Ethan went pale as if struck by lightning. No, that can't be. I leaned down and gave him a cold glance. Ethan Cole, your taste in women is truly pathetic. His pupils contracted violently, his lips trembled, but no words came out. I dropped my hand and picked up a napkin, wiping my fingers one by one, as though I had touched something filthy. Get out. Don't stand here embarrassing yourself. But Ethan didn't leave. He became like a ghost, appearing in every corner of my life, under my office building, outside restaurants, even in front of my villa. He was no longer arrogant, no longer defiant. He just followed me silently. his red-rimmed eyes pleading every time they met mine. Harbor City's media, of course, didn't miss this spectacle. For a week straight, the hashtag Ethan Cole begging for reconciliation dominated the hot search. Serves him right. Wasn't he the arrogant one before? Now he regrets it, huh? Pathetic. His face must be thicker than the city walls. Miss Torres, don't you dare forgive him. Though honestly, Miss Torres is being a bit harsh. They used to love each other. Does she have to be so cold? I turned off my phone, my gaze falling on the medical report placed on my desk, a miscarriage report that Ethan had sent over that morning. As if that would earn my sympathy. Then he began his pitiful attempts at redemption, selling off all his luxury goods to cover the Cole family's losses, kneeling before Torres Group's partners to apologize on my behalf. Miss Torres, he's here again, my assistant reported for the 10th time as I reviewed the acquisition files for another company. He says he's ready to sign over his shares. That contract meant the Cole family would completely become part of Torres Holdings. His father's lifetime of work, his family's blood, sweat, and pride would be absorbed into my empire. I paused briefly. Let him in. When Ethan entered, carrying a stack of documents, I almost didn't recognize him. The once proud heir now wore a wrinkled shirt, bruises still visible on his face. All the procedures are complete, he said hoarsely, pushing the documents toward me. My father's shares are included too. I flipped to the last page. His signature was there, written with force as if every ounce of strength had gone into it. Beside it were a few blurred stains of tears. And the conditions, I asked. He shook his head, his cracked lips bleeding slightly. No conditions. Consider it my way of making amends. I closed the folder slowly. Do you regret it? His entire body trembled. Tears spilled down his face. Every day, every second, he choked, voice breaking into a sob. But we can't go back anymore, can we? I didn't answer. Silence was our final farewell. Anne Gwen was eventually sold to Southeast Asia for forced labor. Ethan's father took what little remained of the Cole fortune and fled overseas. As for Ethan, after signing over all his shares, he vanished completely from Harbor City. Outside my window, dusk settled over the skyline. The city lights flickered to life, thousands of windows glowing across the harbor. Some mistakes can never be undone. Between us, it wasn't just betrayal and pain anymore. It was that by the time he understood the price of what he'd done, my heart had already turned to stone. 3 years later, I stood on the rooftop of the new Torres Tower, gazing at the river shimmering beneath Harbor City's neon glow. The empire I had built was now more than a symbol of financial power. It was proof of resilience. Proof that a woman once pushed to the brink could rebuild herself stronger than ever. Torres Holdings had expanded across Asia, leading the region in real estate and biotechnology. Former partners who once hesitated were now lining up to work with us. And I, Ivy Torres, had become a symbol of female leadership, frequently invited to speak at international business conferences. One drizzly afternoon, my assistant handed me an old, weathered envelope. There was no return address, only a single familiar line written across the front. Ivy, I still hope that one day you'll be able to forgive me. Inside was a faded photograph taken years ago, 5 years? Maybe more. It captured a moment when we were laughing together by the riverbank, when everything had still been simple, before ambition and betrayal destroyed it all. I don't know where Ethan Cole is now. Maybe somewhere far away, in some forgotten corner of the world, working odd jobs to atone for his sins. I no longer search for him. I no longer hate him. Time has turned the pain into a lesson, and I've learned how to let go, to move forward. I tore the letter into tiny pieces and released them into the wind. The breeze carried them away, vanishing into the soft curtain of rain. Then I turned back to my office and signed a new contract, this time for a charity project supporting women betrayed in marriage, helping them rebuild their lives. It wasn't an act of weakness. It was how I transformed my scars into strength, so that no one else would ever have to endure what I once did. Harbor City remained as vibrant as ever, but I was no longer the love-struck girl I used to be. I had become a true queen, ruling a kingdom of my own. The end.